I want to talk tonight about a good death. What is worth dying for? That's the question I want to ask. My favorite, I was thinking of my favorite death in a movie, and it was that guy in Lord of the Rings. I don't want to spoil it, but it's that guy who gets hit with an arrow.
Oh,
and he gets up and he starts fighting and he gets hit with another arrow, and he gets up and he keeps fighting, and they keep shooting him again and again. I know that you are aware of what scene I'm talking about, but that is like the most awesome death I've ever seen in a movie, because that guy did not go down easy. I mean, he kept fighting. He was trying to save the hobbits, and he kept going until the very end. And that's... Hey guys, quiet down. Don't make me get a gavel, please. I don't want to bring a gavel in here. But that's the way we like to see our heroes go out. We like to see them go down swinging. If they're going to go out, we don't want them to go out like a punk. We want to see them get a good fight in at the end, right? Tonight, I want to talk about some people in the Bible who died well, and some of those who didn't die so well. And to make it applicable, I'm not just talking about death tonight. I also want to talk about, where do we stand? What do we stand for? Where do we put our feet down? What do we disagree about? You know, Christians are going to disagree with people sometimes. I hope so anyway. Because maybe you're someone who says, I don't get into a lot of I never disagree with people or something like that. If that's what you say, I'd be like, then you're not being very Christ-like, because Jesus Christ disagreed with a lot of people, right? So what he did almost more than anything, he was disagreeing with people in the way they did things. And maybe you say, well, I disagree with people a lot, but I don't, go and confront them about it or anything like that. I'd say if that's us, then we're still not being Christ-like, because Jesus was not afraid to be bold. And we want to have the boldness of Jesus if we're going to be Christ-like. Thank you for getting that up, Cody. So what I notice about Christians a lot is Christians will pick, in my opinion, the wrong hill to die on. And maybe you guys have heard that expression before. When people say, I picked this hill to die on, I think it goes back to when people would fight battles. And, if they were fighting a big battle and they'd conquer certain parts of the land, and maybe they'd pick this place to, dig in, and that's where they ground themselves. And it turns out that hill that they're on is not really worth keeping. They picked the wrong hill to die on. I think Christians do that a lot with the way we argue. Sometimes we pick places, things that we're just going to make the pinnacle of what matters, and that's the hill we pick to die on, when it's some little thing that doesn't matter. But then there's big, important issues that we just kind of let go and we're not bold about. And so tonight I want to talk about what hills are worth dying on. What's worth arguing about? What's worth where we stand and dig in, or where we just let it go, don't hold it back anymore. I did that for Emery. Speaking of dying, he was asking me, because we were talking about in the cold in the van on the way here and how cold it's been lately. And he said, whenever it snows this weekend, I'm sorry, I'm going to spoil this, Emery. He's going to come up to the house and knock on the door and give Emily a snowman and be like, do you want to build a snowman? And I told him, if you do that, it will be really funny, but you will die. Now, I mean, it'd be a really great death, and that's what we're talking about tonight, is an awesome death. I think it'd be worth it, but you will die. So tonight, most of you don't have your Bibles, that's okay. I've got the verses right here. First person I want to look at, by the way, at the end of this service, you're not going to be like, oh, well, now I know what we're supposed to die for, what we're supposed to fight for, and what to let go. You're not going to know everything about where to stand. I'm just going to show you some areas where I think are worth standing for and what are not. And I'm going to look at two people who did not die for good reasons, who did not stand for good things and died for bad reasons. The first one here is Abimelech. Abimelech was Gideon's son. A lot of you guys probably heard of Gideon, and he led Israel for several years. Whenever he died, Abimelech decided that he wanted to rule Israel. So he killed all his brothers, so there wouldn't be anyone left to take the lead. He killed all of his brothers, and then he took over leading Israel for a while. He was basically a dictator. If people rose up that he didn't like, he would just wipe them out. Here's what happened to Abimelech. And I got the verses here too. I start at verse 50. I'm going to find it. Then Abimelech attacked the town of Thebez and captured it. But there was a strong tower inside the town, and all the men and women, the entire population, fled to it. They barricaded themselves in and climbed up to the roof of the tower. Abimelech followed them to attack the tower, but as he prepared to set fire to the entrance, a woman on the roof dropped a millstone that landed on Abimelech's head and crushed his skull. He quickly said to his young armor-bearer, "Draw your sword and kill me. Don't let it be said that a woman killed Abimelech. So the young man ran him through with his sword, and he died. When Abimelech's men saw that he was dead, they disbanded and returned to their homes. The reason that Abimelech died was because of his pride, right? He didn't want it to be said that he was killed by a woman, so he had one of his own men kill him. And what's kind of funny is that in 2 Samuel, I think, some characters are talking, some people, and one of them mentions, oh, you don't want to be like Abimelech who got killed by a woman. So, and that was hundreds of years later. It actually still went down in history that he died by a woman, which is what he really didn't want to do. I thought that was kind of funny. Here's the lesson I think we get from him, though. Anytime your position, what you're wanting to stand for, if all you're defending is your own pride, it's probably not something worth getting so upset about and fighting so hard for. Just in the past week, someone said something to me that was kind of insulting. It wasn't like a huge deal or anything, but it was kind of insulting to me personally. And when they said it, I just kind of like got overexcited and started like defending myself. And then later I was thinking, it wasn't something worth getting like, jumping up and trying to defend myself for. All someone did was kind of insult my pride. I didn't do anything wrong. They were just kind of being a jerk. And I thought, why did I get so worked up about that? It wasn't even worth, making a big deal about. All that they attacked was my pride. And here's the thing. If I'm trying to live a good life, trying to be the best youth pastor I can be, then, if someone wants to insult you, then I'd say just let them. I know you guys aren't youth pastors, but if you're doing your best, honestly, if you haven't done something wrong and people want to pick on you, I think if there's one thing that Jesus showed us, Jesus lived a perfect life and people would still jump all over him, right? People, they would nitpick on him. Even though Jesus was absolutely perfect, you'd see the Pharisees and they'd be like, did you see? They didn't wash their hands before they ate. And they would make a big deal about it because that's how they were. They saw him eating. They said, oh, see him eating up there? I bet he's a glutton. That's what they said. He wasn't a glutton. He wasn't overeating. People will try to find stuff. It doesn't matter how good you're being. People will try to find places they can pick at you. So as long as you are doing your best and someone wants to come along and pick on you and to try to attack your pride, I would just say that is not that's not a hill worth dying on. That's probably not an argument worth having. And doesn't mean it's okay for people to be rude to you or rude to me. Yes? Great. So, listen, it's not okay for people to be rude to you. It's not okay for people to be rude to me. But if that's how they want to be, I'd say, you know what, just don't let that be something that you get worked up about. That shouldn't be something that gets us fired up. If people just want to attack our pride, just don't let your pride have that much control over you that it really upsets you. That's the first one I want to. Next person I want to look at is Zimri. Zimri was an evil king of Israel. He led Israel for 7 days. He had the shortest reign out of all the kings. The thing with Zimri was he got sick of the old king, so he killed him. And then he just declared himself the next king of Israel. Well, the people didn't like that very much. They thought that was wrong, obviously. So they rose up and they said, okay, Zimri, we're going to come kill you. This is what happened to Zimri. When they'd heard that Zimri had committed treason and had assassinated the king, that very day they chose Omri, commander of the army, as the new king of Israel. So Omri led the entire army up from Gibbethon to attack Tirzah, Israel's capital. When Zimri saw that the city had been taken, he went into the citadel of the palace and burned it down over himself and died in the flames. He decided that he would just rather kill himself than answer for what he did. Would they have let him live if he just owned up to it and said, okay, I killed the king, I was wrong? They probably still wouldn't have let him live. But in the end, he ended up killing himself because he did not want to answer for what he had done wrong. And there's one version of the Bible, it's not this one, but a different translation says, literally, he died, where did I put it? It said he died because of the sins he had committed. So basically, he didn't want to own up to what he did. What I would say is, don't defend your sins. If you do something wrong, you need to be willing to say, okay, I did wrong. It shouldn't be something that you just try to bow up and try to defend yourself. And what we usually do is we start blaming people. We start blaming circumstances, or we say it was really someone else's fault. The time that I did this, well, it really wasn't as bad as that other time. Or that you say, I had a really good reason to do that. Sometimes we just want to defend our sins, and we just want to defend where we did something wrong. And that's not a hill worth dying on. That is not something worth fighting for. If we do something wrong, best thing to do is just own up to it. And sorry, guys, I can't take any questions right now. One time I was in a Sunday school class, and it wasn't a senior pastor, but there was a pastor in there. And he was talking about how it's like important to always follow the laws of the land, and he was kind of hammering that. And I just always remember this class because the guy's son, which I don't think that it was right for the son to do this, but the son says, well, why do you break the speed limit all the time? Kind of like putting his dad right there on the chopping block in front of everyone after what the dad had been saying. And then the dad, he kind of got angry, and he starts saying, well, he went into this big explanation of why it's not bad to break the speed limit, and he has like a non-verbal, unwritten agreement with the cops. He's like, they let me break the speed limit, and if they have a problem with it, they can give me a ticket. And he kind of went into this really specific, kind of weird excuse. It was just an excuse. It was not something worth getting all fired up and arguing about. And I'm not being nitpicky about people who break the speed limit. I don't really care if he broke the speed limit. I kind of didn't like how he just bowed up and got angry about it, and also don't think it was right for the son to do that. But anyway, when someone says you've done something wrong, the easiest thing to do is just own up to it, just admit it. Don't try to defend it. Just say, yeah, I was wrong. And mean it. If you really thought, if you did something wrong, be sincere about it. Yeah, I did something wrong and I'm sorry. Or you're right, I did that wrong to those people or something like that. And oftentimes, that's just the easiest way to get it over with. And you can look at how the person, responds to that. Some people, they want to keep fighting. They're like, well, you need to be really, sorry's not good enough. And they go into all this stuff, and you need to go do this and that. And that really kind of shows you their heart. Like, are they really concerned that you did something wrong, or are they just being judgmental? And you can kind of tell their heart then. But if you've done something wrong, that's something that you don't want to die on that hill. You just want to surrender. You want to say, yeah, you're right, and don't drag it out. So those are two things that are not worth dying for or arguing about. Really, I call this dying for, but we're only going to die one time. And it's probably not going to be for some great cause. That's not what most people die for. But it's more about how do we live our lives? What do we pick? Where do we pick our battles? Let's look at some good things to die for, good things to argue about. Let's look at Samson. And everybody knows Samson's story in here probably. Samson led Israel for 20 years. He also led a very selfish life. And at the end of his life, really his purpose that God put him there in charge of Israel for, was he was supposed to get rid of the Philistines who were being mean to the Israelites. He's supposed to wipe them out and get rid of them and drive them off. And what he ended up doing instead, he married one of them. He got into a lot of sexual encounters with some of them. One of them betrayed him. He lost his strength. They gouged his eyes out. They took him prisoner. And then here's one day where we come to the end of his life. They took him into one of their temples and had a party. Have I got it up there? No, I don't.
No, you do not.
Here we go. And this is in Judges chapter 16. And I'm not going to read. I'm trying to cut it down to the essential stuff. Where is it? Samson said to the young servant who was leading him by the hand, "Place my hands against the pillars that hold up the temple. I want to rest against them." Now the temple was completely filled with people. All the Philistine rulers were there, and there were about 3,000 men and women on the roof who were watching as Samson amused them. Then Samson put his hands on the two pillars that held up the temple. Pushing against them with both hands, he prayed, "Let me die with the Philistines." And the temple crashed down on the Philistine rulers and all the people. And so he killed more people when he died than he had during his entire lifetime. Samson was probably really motivated by revenge. But I think that God was giving him his strength back because he was finally fulfilling his purpose. He was wiping out the Philistines. That's what his job was supposed to do. And he killed like 3,000 of them right there. It cost Samson, it cost him his life. But in the end, what was he dying for? He was ultimately dying for other people. He brought the salvation of Israel. One man dying for a lot of people. You see that a lot in the Bible up until Jesus. One man dying for the salvation of a bunch of people. And that's why Samson died. One thing that is worth dying for is other people. Some Christians are pacifists. They think we should never fight, not defend ourselves. Christians shouldn't go to war, stuff like that. And they'll go to verses like, Jesus said, if someone strikes you on the cheek, turn the other cheek. That's true, Jesus said that. But he also said, whenever he was commissioning his disciples to go out and spread the gospel, he said, sell your cloak and buy a sword. Because if people come to attack you, you can defend yourself. Now, you should turn the other cheek. That still applies. But if someone is going to attack your life, if they're putting you in real mortal danger, it's okay to defend yourself. I'm not saying turn the other cheek so you can, cut my head off or something. But if someone insults you, if it's not gonna like kill you or wound you terribly, turn the other cheek. Be willing to take an insult or something. Turn the other cheek then. But if someone's really going to attack you, defend yourself. And so I'm not a Christian pacifist in that sense. God gifted Samson spiritually, gave him supernatural strength so that he could push down those pillars and kill all those Philistines. And here's one thing. He was doing that so that Samson could, offensively hurt other people. I would say it's totally okay for Christians to serve in the military, to people who have a problem with that. But in those situations, and these are rare situations where someone might have to die for another person, that can happen. That is a worthy reason to die for other people. This is different. Look at how it worked out with Samson and Abimelech. Abimelech led a selfish life and he died for selfish reasons. Samson led a selfish life, but in the end he died for other people. He still had a good death in the end. That's why I'm putting him in the good category here, because I think it was worth it for what he did. Second thing worth dying for, we're going to look at John the Baptist. A lot of you guys know about John the Baptist. He was Jesus' cousin, paved the way for Jesus. Jesus said there was not born a man greater than John the Baptist. Here's what happened to John the Baptist in Matthew 14. Herod had arrested and imprisoned John the Baptist as a favor to his wife, Herodias. Herod and Herodias. That always kind of made me laugh. Herodias was the former wife of Herod's brother Philip. That's significant. We'll go to that in a minute. John had been telling Herod, it is against God's law for you to marry her. Okay, remember I talked about this a couple weeks ago. In the Bible it says the only reason for divorce, the only reason there should ever be divorce is... I got it up here. Only reason for divorce is if someone commits adultery. What Herod did is, I don't think his brother died, because otherwise there wouldn't be adultery here. John told Herod, it's against God's law for you to marry her. So this made Herod mad. Herod wanted to kill John, but he was afraid of a riot because all the people believed that John was a prophet. He was a prophet. But at a birthday party for Herod, Herodias, his daughter, performed a dance that greatly pleased him, so he promised with a vow to give her anything she wanted. That's another reason why vows are stupid. You make a vow and then you have to follow up on it. Sometimes people make stupid vows. Don't make vows, guys. At her mother's urging, the girl said, I want the head of John the Baptist on a tray. Then the king regretted what he had said, but because of the vow he had made in front of his guests, he issued the necessary orders. He didn't want to be embarrassed in front of all the people. So John was beheaded in the prison, and his head was brought in on a tray, given to the girl who took it to her mother. Why were they mad at John? Why did they throw John in prison? Because John looked at the king and he said, what you're doing is adultery. It's not right. It's against God's law. It's not right for you to have your brother's wife like that. John was getting in his face, and I don't know if he's even getting in his face, but that's something that John had said, either in public or somewhere, and they threw him in prison for it. Is it worth it to go to jail for the institution of marriage? I would say it is. Thank you, Philip. John believed what Jesus said. Like I said, that if you marry another person, and it's not because of adultery, and then you go marry another person, you're committing adultery. Because it doesn't matter what the divorce certificate that you get a lawyer to sign, it doesn't matter what that says. In God's eyes, those people are still married. That's why that is wrong. And it's a covenant. Now, I preached something that was totally incorrect last week. I have to issue a retraction. Last week I was talking about judging people, and I said we shouldn't expect non-Christians to hold to Christian standards on marriage. That's one thing that I said when I was talking about, I think I was talking about divorce and stuff like that. Actually, I think that was wrong now, because John the Baptist was getting on Herod's case for it. Herod was not following God, but John the Baptist was getting on his case. So I'd say maybe that is something that we should hold all people to. Maybe we should, whenever it comes to marriage laws, we should try to get everybody to follow the Christian model for marriage. That you marry one person and you stick with it for life. So I think I was wrong about that last week, and I just wanted to get that clear. I'm sorry, guys. But anyway, I was talking to someone who I'm going to call them a nominal Christian. By that I mean they say that they're a Christian, but I don't really think that they're a Christian. This was like a year or two ago. I was talking to someone, and she was saying, she's talking about gay marriage, and she said, well, if gay people want to get married, I'm against it personally, but I don't think we should make laws to say that it's wrong for gay people to get married, to each other. And I don't know. I think that I'm totally in favor of keeping marriage the way it is. I do not think that gay people should just go get married. And I think that John the Baptist, if he was alive today, he would go to jail for that too. I think that that's something that Christians need to stand up and be strong on. I don't think that divorce should be easy. God doesn't want divorce to be something easy. And I see these signs that say quick and easy divorce. I don't want to burn those signs down because that's not what marriage is supposed to be like. Those quick and easy divorce signs. You guys have seen them. So listen, what's really sad is sometimes Christians are soft on this issue of why people get divorced. One of the reasons is because there's a lot of Christians who just want a quick and easy divorce. That happens with Christians sometimes. And so they get soft on it. And that's something that I think we need to stand strong on. That is a hill worth dying on. John the Baptist died because of what he believed about marriage. So I think that's something that we do not want to falter on. We want to be strong on that. Some Christians today won't stand up against gay marriage. Most will. But I think there's a lot of Christians who are getting soft on the divorce thing, have been for some time. And that's something that we want to be solid on. Last person, and I want to recap real quick. Not worth dying for, not worth arguing against, your pride and your sin. Worth dying for, worth arguing for, other people, marriage, and finally, we're going to talk about the gospel. That is something very clearly in the Bible worth dying for. Or look at Stephen. Lots of people died for the spread of the gospel. Starting in Bible times all the way up to today, people died for the spread of the gospel. Stephen was the very first one that happened to. And I'm going to read that to you here. I'm going to find it in my Bible. Acts chapter 7, starting at verse 54. And here's what happened. Stephen had been speaking to a group of Jewish leaders, laying out the whole gospel story to them. And he concluded it by saying, and Jesus came to die for you, and you guys killed him. The Jewish leaders were infuriated by Stephen's accusation, so they shook their fists at him in rage. But Stephen, full of the Holy Spirit, gazed steadily into heaven, saw the glory of God, and he saw Jesus standing in the place of honor at God's right hand. And he told them, I see the heavens opened and the Son of Man standing in the place of honor at God's right hand. Then they put their hands over their ears and began shouting. They rushed at him and dragged him out of the city and began to stone him. So he's the first person, the first martyr to die for the spread of the gospel. I read something interesting this week. If a Muslim, these extremists, these ISIS people, if a Muslim terrorist is coming at you and trying to kill you, and that's probably not going to happen here, but in these countries where it happens, if they're coming at you and they're going to kill you, you can just say, I convert to Islam. And by their moral code, they're not allowed to kill you then. All you have to do is say it. You don't even have to mean it. But if someone just shouts, I convert to Islam, then they will not kill you. That's what I heard. For Christians, though, that's not an option. For Christians, we're going to look at what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 10. Everyone who acknowledges me publicly here on earth, I will also acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But everyone who denies me here on earth, I'll also deny before my Father in heaven. The gospel is something we have to be willing to die for. It probably won't come to that. No, hold up just a minute. It probably won't come to that. It's 8 o'clock. I'm almost done. But if it did happen, have you asked yourself, if that happened to me, would I die for Jesus? That's the question I want you guys to ask yourself. Would I die for Jesus? Probably won't have to, but if that's what it came to, would I die for Jesus? Lots of people say that we say, yeah, I would die for God. And it's really easy to say that. And one thing that I always thought, kind of cavalier, I'm like, I'm not afraid to die because when I die, I know where I'm going. Whenever it's my time, I'm ready to go. And that's kind of been my attitude for pretty much my whole life. I'm like, I know where I'm going, so I'm not worried about it. But then whenever I was at Whitewater a few months ago, and they had this slide called the Kapow Plummet. Some of you guys might remember it. And there's a tube, and you stand on the trap door, and it opens up underneath you. Yeah, I was pretty scared of dying right then. And I never realized how much I did have a fear of it. Even though I always felt brave about it when I talked about it, when you're actually right there looking at this trap door, suddenly I really don't want to die. And I was kind of surprised because I'm like, I had never worried about this before. Here's the thing is, we can say that we would die for Jesus, and then that's not, sure, I would die for God. Someone holds a gun to my head, sure, I'm not going to deny Jesus. ISIS comes after me, I'll let him take my head off. It's easy to say that. But how can we know until we're in actually that situation if we would die for Jesus? I think I have a solution. Without testing it, I think we have a solution. The way you know if you would die for Jesus is if you will live for Jesus. The way you know you would die for Jesus depends on if you will live for Jesus every day. Because if you won't live for Jesus, I would not believe if you said that you would die for Jesus. But if you'll live for him, then I think it would hold true.